There's a moment in every healing journey when you realize holding on doesn't protect you. It preserves your pain. Forgiveness, it's the only way out. I'm Michael Perry, and I'm joined today by Justin Gates and our special guest, Courtney DeMatteo.
Hello.
And this is the New Ashla Podcast. Hello and welcome to the New Ashla Podcast. Today we are diving into forgiveness, and what a powerful topic this is. I'm so glad you joined us today, Courtney. This is like one of your areas of specialties that you've had since I've known you. I've taken your classes on it. It's been a part of your programs, and from what I understand, it's even more so now.
It is. I have been talking about forgiveness for about 10 years. And the reason why is because it was such a huge eye-opening experience for me when I finally learned what real forgiveness is and the healing that can come of it. And so I just really jumped on it and spread the word. I want as many people to know about it as possible.
I agree. It's one thing that I see out there in the world. So many people I care about holding on to these silent resentments like weights. And they just, it's not even a part of their thought process. And it's just like, I want to reach out, hold them and shake them and just be like, let it go. Free yourself. Free yourself.
Yeah. And that's why I talk about freedom through forgiveness. And that's really the ultimate goal, right? Is to find freedom, and forgiveness is the way to it. Forgiveness is the way to get there. And I think too many people have the wrong idea of what forgiveness is. And so that's what keeps them from working on a forgiveness practice. And I would love to dispel some of those myths tonight.
Awesome. Glad to have you on.
It's definitely one of the most misunderstood acts that we can give from spirit. We can give ourselves from spirit too.
Absolutely.
A lot of people just means, well, you're just excusing their behavior. Well, hold on, that's not what we're doing. But we'll get into that stuff tonight, because there's no excusing here or pretending that things didn't happen, or right, or one that I see a lot in the people I talk to. They say, well, if I do this or this or this, then it's just letting them know that they can hurt me again. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not necessarily true, but we'll get into that stuff tonight, I think.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. We're going to dispel those myths, because forgiveness is not for them, it's for you. Exactly.
And just to put this in the right direction today, it's not a sign of weakness. You're not weak for this. So let's,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to dive into all of it tonight. We will make it clear.
Perfect. Well, I guess let's go ahead and dive into exactly that. What does forgiveness really mean? What is forgiveness?
So one of the best definitions I ever heard was actually from Mary Morrissey. And she said that it's a trade in perspective. You're giving one perspective for another. And that's how I always remember it, right? I've got this perspective of being wronged or being hurt, and not to say that that didn't happen, but that's the seat that I'm sitting in. Is I've been wronged, I've been hurt, I'm the victim. And I'm going to trade that perspective for one of, I can still be strong, or I can be stronger because of what I went through, or even in spite of what I went through. Right? And so when I can find that point of power, that's where forgiveness starts. So it's that trade in perspective.
Oh, that's beautiful. I read a quote last week that just I've been thinking about nonstop. And it's like, you've healed when you go from what happened to you being the story to the journey you had being the story.
Yes.
And I mean, it's like one of the most powerful things of why people go to therapy is as we discharge the emotions, we can slowly shift that story and go back in time and try to just work our way where we find new meaning in the events that happen in our lives. I mean, it sounds like, I love how that ties right into this, because forgiveness is necessary to get to that stage.
And restory is a part of forgiveness, right? It's something that comes along the path as you're forgiving somebody. You start to tell a new story. And when you can restory, and again, restory from the point of power, now all of a sudden it's not what happened to me, but who am I now because of what I went through.
Yes.
Think about how powerful that is. I go back and I readdress things that happened to me at a time where I was powerless, obviously, clearly something, and I'm going back with insight and discernment, and I am changing it. I am flipping the script. I am removing myself from this piece, and this person isn't even important anymore, the one who hurt me, because now I'm focusing on myself, and that takes a lot of power.
Yes.
I mean,
And
but the freedom in that, in that movement, right? When we think of freedom, we're like, oh, we have Bill of Rights, and we have no freedom to move in here, everywhere, and that's I would take that power over any other power in the universe because it's unlimited. It's amazing.
Yeah, 100%. And that's, if we go back to that original, when the other person is holding the power, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a victim of something, if something has happened to me, that other person is holding power over me because they are directing my thoughts, they are directing my actions. When I show up in the presence of this other person, I'm going to be a different person. I'm not going to show up as wholly me. I'm going to be meek, I'm going to constrict, I'm going to hold myself back, right? What I'm actually doing is I'm allowing them to dictate who I'm showing up as. They have power over me, right? Forgiveness allows me to take that power back. So that locus of control is back inside of me. And I get to decide who I'm showing up as, how I'm going to act or react. And so now I'm back holding the power instead of letting them have the power over me.
Man, preach it.
Yeah. And for forgiveness is one of the most powerful parts of our path that we teach, that Michael and I, everything we do in the show comes from a place of grace and forgiveness and
Acceptance.
And it's one of those things, like I said earlier, it's one of those most misunderstood things, I think. So, because you feel so depowered, especially if you just go back and just look and not try to get yourself involved again. We have an axiom of light that talks to this, and it's agonizing over a situation to resolution provides limited gain and comfort. The price you pay long term for not letting go can be great. And the very first steps of letting go, I know that's one of those things easier said than done, right? But this is how we start. This show today, we're going to really get into that. But when you hold on to resentment, you think that you're protecting yourself, but it just sucks the marrow out of your bones over time, and it just doesn't stop until you stop it, right? So
Almost literally too, that whole mind-body connection, right? Any and every dis-ease that I have going on inside of my body began first as an emotional, or depending on your belief system, spiritual trauma, or I'd say misalignment is how I'd call it, right? So it started first emotionally or mentally, and then because I didn't do anything about it, it sank down into my body. And so arthritis is one of the greatest known results of hanging on to resentment. So you are literally hurting yourself by hanging on to this resentment. I love the metaphor, drinking the poison and expecting the other person to die. Right? That's what resentment is.
So
I've
true.
referenced that so many times from your classes just because it is the perfect description of what resentment is.
It's the perfect framing of it too, because it sounds absolutely crazy.
Right.
When you frame it like that, and it's like, wow, I guess it is crazy to hold on to somebody, all this resentment and stuff, because resentment and shame and all this stuff that was never mine to hold. And I'm just sitting here holding it like, why do I have this?
So let's get into the misconceptions. What misconceptions do people have for forgiveness? I mean, we're talking about how a lot of people get this wrong, and I think there's a lot of truth to that, but I think a lot of it's in the details, the misconceptions.
Well, it starts with the idea that by forgiving someone, I am either letting them off the hook or I'm allowing them to justify their actions, right? And that's not what forgiveness is at all.
Right.
And again, I go back to forgiveness is for me, not for you, right? It's not for the other person. I'm doing it for me, for my freedom. And in the spiritual world, we know that spirituality loves balance. And so if someone perpetrates against you, it's going to be taken care of. It's not my job to do something about it, right? My job is to heal, learn, and grow. Anything I can do to expand. Anything that I do to someone else is going to take away from my purpose. And so, we really want people to know I'm not letting them off the hook because I'm forgiving them. I think that's the biggest one.
Right. And I always think about, there was this on my vision board, I think it was in your vision board class, I had this image of a person in handcuffs, and the handcuffs breaking into birds and flying away. And it was always as I was going through my own stuff I was working through and that pent-up resentment, it's how I kept trying to visualize the forgiveness is, I'm doing this to break free from the chains that I put myself in. This is not necessary.
Yeah.
And again, forgiveness wasn't letting this person off the hook, but it was allowing myself to move on from the event. Doesn't mean they still have a place in my life, but it does mean that I no longer hold on to that animosity or resentment that came from those events.
Yes. Yes. And I would say another misconception is the idea that if I forgive you, it's opening the door for you to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Which, again, isn't true. And we'll go over why these things aren't true, I think, as we go on in the conversation. But by forgiving you, it doesn't mean that I have to let you perpetrate against me again. Right? By forgiving you, it doesn't mean that I have to engage with you again. This doesn't mean that we have to become friends. It simply means that I'm letting, so again, I'm big on metaphors, I'm big on storytelling, but the metaphor of being the gatekeeper. So if I'm hanging on to resentment, what I've done is I've put you into jail, but I have to stand there and hold the key. So that's my energy. That's wasting my energy. When I forgive you, I don't know if you're in jail or not, right? That's on you. That's got nothing to do with me. But I get to drop the key and walk away. So there's my freedom.
Yeah, I mean, it's not forgiving. It's remembering without letting that memory poison you, as you said earlier. We're not excusing what people did. It's choosing not to be defined by that.
Right.
And those are the big parts. So I can't think of any other misconception other than, people will say, well, this makes me look weak if I'm forgiving. I have to hold on to this forever. Scorpio's really bad at that, Michael.
Yeah, no, I'm aware. I'm still working through it.
I'm surrounded by Scorpios. I got Michael over here. I got my wife over here, and I'm a Scorpio. And
it fits. It fits too well.
It used to make me giggle. So I used to be a teacher. And on the first day of school, we would go through our classroom rules. And I would always, at the very end, I would have the class practice saying, I'm sorry. And, they'd grumble, I'm sorry. And I'm like, no, I want to hear it. And then and we would be silly about it, right? And we'd go, I'm sorry. And then I go, oh my gosh, none of you died. You're fine. You are absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong. You said I'm sorry, and you're still alive.
Yeah,
and that was
teach
a
that
big...
in high school, too.
Yeah, well...
In college. At workplaces, everywhere.
It's that whole idea of weakness, right? If I own up to my responsibility, or if I own up to something I did wrong, then that makes me weak. If I apologize, that makes me weak. If I forgive, that makes me weak. When it's just the opposite, right? Forgiving was one of the hardest things for me to learn. That didn't make me weak. It made me a heck of a lot stronger. Mm-hmm. So that misconception of forgiveness makes me weak. No, it's actually making you stronger because it is the harder path to choose.
Yeah.
Eventually you get good at it and then it becomes easy and it's kind of fun.
I believe it, though. I can only imagine, the weight starts to pile on. Like, one thing I've noticed since I've started this path is how much I walk with a level of detachment, especially to events and circumstances in my life. And it's just like, I see someone in my life go through something very similar, and it just has such a major impact. But it's just like, I release the need to control this. It's like, this is not something I need to put energy into because it goes nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's like letting your heart off the hook. Imagine how painful it'd be. We'll do some more metaphors. Imagine how painful it'd be to have your heart, like a hook in your heart, right? That would hurt so much. And this practice, it takes your heart off the hook so it can heal. And then once it heals, it's like, it's even stronger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to add to that metaphor, because I love that metaphor, is forgiveness isn't that constant pulling. This was the biggest issue I struggled with forgiveness, is I tried to brute force my way through it, and it was like pulling on that hook. And you don't, as you know, if you got a fish on a hook, you try pulling on it, it's just going to get in there deeper and deeper. It's the true letting go, the ability to push the hook away and then out. It's the release of the hook, and not the trying to pull it out of your system. Because that was probably the hardest part I had with forgiveness, is I knew it cognitively, but it is a practice and not just a cognitive, I'm just going to forgive this person. It's a visceral sensation, a visceral release.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And then I would say the last misconception would be the idea of, if I don't forgive them, if I hang on to this resentment, it's hurting them in some way.
Oh my God, that's probably yes.
Yep. So, I have to hang on to this in order to hurt them. They need to hurt the way that I hurt. And it just doesn't work that way.
No, but we see that everywhere.
I was about to ask, how often do you think that's unconscious that people do that?
I think a lot of this is unconscious or learned, right?
Yeah.
Learned behavior. This is what I've seen. And that learned behavior becomes habit. So, I mean, truthfully, 95% of our day we spend in unconscious habit. And so, this is just one more of those things that we do unconsciously that we've learned and we've watched and we've lived. That's why we have conversations like this, so that we can bring light to it and hopefully start to shift some of those habits.
But this is why we need help too. We need that good circle of trust. Those people that we can sit with and that will sit with us. There's another axiom that comes to mind. Confusion distorts reason. When in doubt, do not act. Seek guidance and proceed cautiously. What that tells me is when I have trouble letting go, I need to, if I can't let it go, try to hand it to somebody who can help me let go. Go see somebody, talk to a counselor, or talk to someone like Courtney, or talk to, whatever. But, and again, there's no shame in that, no weakness in that. That's strength. That takes a lot of courage. I mean, it takes so much courage to do what we're saying to do anyway today, right? Yes.
Yeah.
To face that pain and that hurt honestly, and even to face the fact that we do have some accountability for these things, right? So, I mean, sometimes we do have to hand it off for a minute, but, be careful who you hand it off to. Make sure you hand it to somebody who is ready to hold it for you while you prepare to let it go, right?
Yes.
Well, we need that mirroring, right? I mean, when we live in our heads, we catastrophize, we begin to second guess ourselves, but when we have that circle of trust, these people, I mean, you two were major parts of my healing journey, where I would talk about things that I thought were petty and silly around my trauma, but you guys would sit there in the mud with me and help me work through it and give me that reflection I needed to help me feel human. It's necessary. We need connection.
Yeah.
Yes, and to Justin's point, there is nothing weak about that. Again, that is the sign of strength, right? When you're willing to reach out and be vulnerable with somebody. Because let's face it, what's harder, holding it in or being vulnerable and letting it out?
Right.
The sign of strength is definitely the letting it out.
And we, of course, I have the ability to look at our analytics for our show, and the people we reach are by and far men, and I think men have a lot of trouble with this. So it's important for Michael and I to be that example. Say, look, I'll rip my heart out and show you. Yeah. I go through this stuff too, even though a lot of people look at me the way Michael does. But I still struggle. I still falter. And guess what? I'm going to reach up to him and grab him by the shirt and pull myself up too. So it's important for us to be vulnerable. It doesn't matter, he could look at me, I'll just say it like this. He looks at me in a way where it's almost like if someone were looking outside that I am perfect and infallible and stuff, and he'll tell you, man, while I sat in the mud with him, we sat in the mud together through lots of things. So, these roles that we play, teacher, student, counselor, client, and everything in between, those roles are mirrors. Those roles, we can learn from each other, and we do, and we get better that way. None of us are to a point where we are infallible, and I don't think we ever will be. We have 9 levels of movement through our teachings, It starts from newbie all the way to newbie again, right? It does, right? So it starts off, so you start at awakening and you end with awakening, because it's important to remember that no matter how much stuff you do and how great you get and how powerful you become, you still have to start over again, because that is the way things are. That vulnerability is important, I mean, especially for that segment of the population who have been taught that it's not okay to show weakness. It's not. There's nothing weak about crying. There's nothing weak about needing people. And so, yeah, I mean, we have to, in our spheres of influence, we have to make sure that we are the best example we can be, including showing our failures and showing our weakness, our perceived weaknesses. So, yeah, and forgiveness is no different. All of us have a problem with accountability from time to time. I eat accountability for breakfast, I eat it for lunch and dinner, and I still mess it up sometimes. So yeah, I mean, but this topic hits right at the heart of what Michael and I are trying to do, because it hits on so much of the things that we want to, virtue, for example. Virtue is something that has become almost comical to people. They don't want to, it's just kind of old fashioned, right? Or something like that.
It's a concept.
But in this topic, grace, responsibility, courage, these things, love, truth, integrity, these are all important aspects to this. So, sorry, I hijacked the conversation there, but I didn't mean to.
No, but it's good to bring up, because this, not only is it not an easy thing to just do, but it requires a certain level of character, and it takes practice. Yeah. Again, like I said, I'm still struggling with some of the stuff I'm working to forgive, and I've spent a couple of years on this. And that's okay. That's where I'm at in my journey, and I accept that. But vulnerability is key, because when you can lay yourself bare to those you trust with that, it's amazing the healing that can happen in those spaces. So why is forgiveness important?
Why is it important? Well, I think you guys really just did a great job of it. It is your freedom. Right? It is the cleansing of your space. It was funny when you came to me and said, hey, we're doing this topic, would you join us? I had to go through a mental, just kind of a checklist of, hey, I haven't done my forgiveness practice in a little while. Who have I been hanging on to? And I had to take accountability for myself and say, oh, you know what? I can see some places that I've been hanging on to some resentment lately, and I need to go and clear that. We've got to practice what we preach, and just like Justin said, nobody is infallible. We all, as spirits, chose to be human, knowing that these human bodies come with an ego. And I am so sorry. I know I'm not sorry. I'm not gonna do that. I'm not sorry. But we chose to come into these bodies knowing they have an ego. We will never leave this ego until we leave this body. And so that whole idea of ego death, it's nonsense. It's complete nonsense, because our ego is here to stay. We can heal our ego. We can work. And what I love to do is talk about spirit and ego coming together and working side by side, right? But we will never lose our ego. And so we need to be really aware of what the ego is, the trappings of it, the failings of it, and then own up to it and say, you know what? That's what happened. And that's where that I'm sorry comes into play.
Right.
It's okay to say I'm sorry. It's okay to take accountability for yourself.
Well, and just to encapsulate what you just said there, I just got to hone this in for whoever's listening, just in case they didn't catch that. So, because I'll be honest, I think of forgiveness, and I've been thinking on such a grand scale, people who have really hurt us, that it hangs deep in the soul, and it's like, yeah, that takes a lot of work, that's a lot of deep motion, but it's like, where are the little resentments stacking up? Where is the counter starting to move that you need to start releasing it? Because it's those little resentments that build contempt, that fracture relationships, and it could be just an accumulation of little things, like your friend saying that one annoying thing that gets under your skin, and it's just like, forgive and advocate. I love how you brought that up, because I don't think I've contemplated forgiveness in that light, but you're right. And so that's a good forgiveness practice, is to dive into where am I storing these little accumulations of debt.
Yes, for sure. And especially, congratulations, Mike, on being a newlywed.
Thank you.
Little marriage advice right here is definitely work through those things and let them go. And I'll, if I can, I guess, toot my own horn a little bit. My husband and I, when we have conflict, he will bring up stuff from 15 years ago. And he'll bring up stuff from a year ago. And I'll say, I don't remember that. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what you're talking. And it's truly because I did my forgiveness work and I let it go. So I'm not hanging on to it anymore. And for me, it's so refreshing to be able to do that and just say, sorry, don't know what you're talking about. That one's out of my rearview mirror.
Yes. Yeah, I have that exact experience in my marriage, in my life. I don't remember. I don't remember the annoying things, the bad things, the in that moment. But that was then. I'm to toot my horn a little bit, I'm really good at letting go, and it drives my wife crazy. It drives her absolutely crazy that I can't remember something that I did or that she did then. I don't have the capacity to hold on to that stuff. But what you said about the ego death, when I first brought Michael on and we started our teachings together, our learning together, that was one of those times where his mind was blown, because he was talking to me about killing his ego, and I was like, why we don't kill egos. You can kill it all you want to if you think you are, but that's not how this works, right? We align it with spirit. We pay more attention to it when we need to, when it's hurting, when it's doing all these things. But Michael, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
I remember the day you're talking about.
That really, it just stopped him in his tracks. Like, I had to use smelling salts to get him to come back to again, because everywhere we go, these really ancient spiritual paths, thousands of years old, tell us kill the ego, and it's like, no, that's not what you do.
No.
Because if you think that it won't turn on you too, it will turn on you like crazy. Better to tame it, better to heal it, better to align it.
A healed ego can be so incredibly powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always refer to Wayne Dyer and love him dearly, and it's the one place where I disagree with him, because he used to say the ego is the enemy, right? And I would stand there and say, don't tell me that you, who is standing on a stage in front of 2,000 people making a ton of money, don't have an ego.
Right.
And that's not a knock on him. Wonderful. No. He was an incredible man, an incredible speaker, an incredible leader. And yes, he had an ego that drove him to want to stand up in front of 2,000 people and 5,000 people and 50,000 people and millions of people via the internet, right? He had an ego that was driving him in the direction of success. And so he had a beautiful spirit that was alongside of a beautiful ego. Yeah. And that's what drives us. That's what the most successful people are, have a beautiful spirit. But he killed it
every time. He killed it because they were in alignment. You know? You cannot eat on hopes and prayers. You can't. You have to feed yourself. And I know this is getting us a little off topic, but I do want to ask you, since I have you here, Michael and I have talked about aligning the ego and taming it and healing it and getting it in line with what we as a being want to do with our life and our purpose and all that. But then we run into something sometimes, and I'm guilty of this myself, the spiritual ego, which is a little tougher to align and tame, right?
So define that for me.
So and it's something we address early on in our teachings through like the first 2 or 3 paths, really, or segments or whatever. But it's when you start learning tons of stuff and you do ascend from where you were a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. But then you have this ego, and maybe it's just the same ego, it's just inflated with more power or more knowledge, but it almost comes like now you're coming from like the man on the hill, the man on the mountain, where everybody, you're expecting people to climb to you, right? Yes. As I tell Michael, just as an example, as I tell Michael, yes, I am your teacher. yes, I probably know a lot more and I've had a lot more experience, but we're still here together. You know, I'm not above you. I'm
Yep.
here. I'm just doing some different things than you are.
Yep.
I'm working through the same kind of things you are, just on just a different, just at a
Yes.
different, you know, whatever. And so, but that spiritual ego tells us, well, I'm your teacher. I must be here and you must be there, and you know, never stray from the things I tell you. We've always kind of called that spiritual ego, because once we get inflated and we start learning a lot of truths of the universe,
Yeah.
it tends to be different ego things. I don't know. Maybe it's the same. Maybe I don't know. What do you think?
So so I know exactly what you're talking about. I was actually talking with a client about that today.
Okay. Yeah.
And in my, I guess, terminology, to me, that's still ego. There is still spirit. There is ego. Ego is going to go in all different directions, and it's going to be inflated. And yes, in learning about these really cool, wonderful, mysterious concepts, there is absolutely such an easy inflation of yourself that goes on. And yeah, I have to check myself, you know, absolutely. And I'm sure that I'm guilty of it. But that's my human ego,
Yeah.
just in a different, showing up in a different way, you know? And again, there are some good things about that, because that's what drives people. And I love success. I think success is beautiful, and we can define it however we want to. But I think, you know, I want everybody to be successful and to find their definition of success. I don't believe that you can do that without an ego, because the way that I describe spirit is spirit is a pot smoking hippie that is laying down on the beach somewhere that doesn't care what happens to this body. Right? Because spirit is going to body jump. Spirit's been in, depending on your spiritual age, you've been in many, many lives before. You've got many, many lives to come. Spirit doesn't care about this body and what happens to it. Right. Ego is who's going to protect me and keep me safe and keep me alive in this lifetime. And so, thank you, ego. Right? I really like to celebrate the ego. I like to recognize all of the benefits that the ego brings. And I really celebrate the fact that ego is what drives us to success. And so, you know, yes, that spiritual ego, I'll be honest, I roll my eyes. It drives me crazy. I just had somebody come to me today and say, you know, I did my Reiki 2 teaching, but my Reiki master doesn't think that I'm ready enough to get my attunement and my certification. And she told me to slow down because spirit doesn't like me to go too fast. And I'm like, if that's not ego, because it's not for me to say where you are.
Right.
It's not my job as a teacher, as a master, as a coach, or anything to say where you are on your path. You're the only person who knows where you are on your path. And I've had, it's difficult too when marriages, right? I have one person come to me and they've been working on this and doing this personal development and building themselves up. And then they come to me and say, but my husband or my wife isn't doing the work and I'm leaving them behind. Well, guess what? You don't know where they are on their path, because my path looks like this. And if you're just listening, I'm taking 2 fingers and I'm twisting and turning all over the place. And then your path looks like this. And then if I'm here and you're here, who's to say where you really are? So I can't judge where somebody else is on their path, not my husband, not my kids, not my clients, and they can't judge me either, right? That's ego getting involved. So when somebody has been doing their work, what we say, doing the work, and all of a sudden they feel like they've surpassed somebody, well, then you've got more work to do, because you never know where you are on your path versus somebody else. It can't even be compared.
So I'll bring us back around full circle. How easy or hard is forgiveness with the first, I guess, how much harder does it make it if your ego is unhealed and untamed and unaligned with spirit, versus when you finally get that piece done? Does that make it much more easier and much more powerful? Or
yes. So I think the first thing, and again, to bring this back to forgiveness, your spirit, I'd say in my belief system, can never be damaged. If you ever feel damage, it's your ego. It's your ego that's been damaged. So it's your ego that needs to do the forgiving, right? Now, an ego that feels, and I don't know if you guys have gotten into levels of awareness, but level 1, level 2, 3, and 4. Level 1 is that victimhood. Life is happening to me. When you're living in level 1, forgiveness is almost non-existent. It's
Right.
just not something that's even on your radar. Or maybe you've heard it in church and, you're still believing that it's letting somebody off the hook. So that ego really isn't interested in forgiveness, right? They're the ones they're being served by hanging on to the resentment because they're getting whatever validation that they're looking for. Their ego is being fed by hanging on to that resentment. So there's not going to be an awareness of forgiveness there. When you step up to level 2, the world is happening for me. That's where kind of that spiritual path starts to appear. And that's where I see people starting to get interested, but they feel kind of that brick wall of, yeah, but I don't want to let them off the hook. Yeah, but I don't want to tell them that what they did was okay. And so, that's where, as long as they're coachable, that's where we can start to have the discussion about forgiveness.
Very good. Yeah, I would agree with that. Michael, sorry, I didn't mean to hijack the.
Oh, you're
the
good.
show
No,
here.
I'm enjoying the conversation. So, well, and I guess I also wanted to tie in because there was one key point you mentioned about how when we hold on to this stuff, it's a part of the ego, and so to heal yourself, to get into healing, you have to do forgiveness work because you got to heal the ego because forgiveness lies this energetic discrepancy, for lack of a better phrase, lies within the ego's own frame of reference. And so one of the reasons it's so important is without forgiveness, you can't move into healing. You can't move into acceptance. Because when you're holding on to this stuff, you're energetically keeping yourself small or at the level of that event.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's a really good point.
So you were talking about arthritis being something that comes of holding on to resentment. What other types of issues come up when we have resentment within us, when we don't have forgiveness within our lives, or we have something that needs forgiveness? I'm thinking about like mental health, like anxiety.
Sure. So, I definitely find peace through forgiveness. And so, yes, there would be anxiety, there would be depression, there would be really low self-esteem. That somebody, and again, that's all sitting in victimhood. That's all saying that the world did something to me. And so that's where those things come from, right? Anxiety, what is it? Anxiety is living in the future. Depression is living in the past. Happiness is living in the now, right? So what comes of forgiveness is peace. What comes of forgiveness is freedom, the ability to let go. How amazing would it be to be in an argument with somebody and they say, remember this thing that you did 15 years ago? And you say, nope, don't remember it. Sorry, and not be affected by it. And then the other thing, I think we've talked about this before, but that whole chameleon aspect. So once upon a time, I very proudly described myself as a chameleon. I could go into any situation and I can be anything to anybody. I could be anything that anybody needed me to be. Well, now I'm so glad that I'm not a chameleon anymore, because what that said about me was I didn't know who I was. And I was allowing other people, once again, I gave my power away. I was allowing other people to dictate who I am. Hanging on to resentment is really similar to that. So once upon a time, when I was hanging on to resentment towards other people, when I was in their presence, I would just shrink back and get small, right? I wouldn't have a voice. I wouldn't have a presence. I would contract and I would say, well, I'm protecting myself from them. Well, no, that's not protection, right? Protection would be when I'm able to stand up and advocate for myself and speak up for myself and set boundaries for myself. That's protection. When I'm shrinking back, all I'm doing is holding myself down, or I'm letting them let me hold myself down, right? They're the ones who are dictating who I'm showing up as. So as I start to forgive, all of a sudden that chameleon effect goes away, because I am me no matter where I am or no matter whose presence I'm in. I step into a room and this is it. This is who you get. And like it or not, take it or leave it, doesn't matter, because I am who I am and I'm going to continue to be this person. So that's, I think, a form of freedom that I found through this forgiveness practice.
Yeah, I got to admit the chameleon aspect of things really was something that I say even now I still struggle with, because it's like retraining my nervous system that it's okay to have different opinions and different feelings about things, and that you can disagree with people and still be safe. And it's crazy how ingrained that can be in someone's nervous system. But man, as you do this work, the healing that comes from it, the more you release that power that you're giving up, not release the power to them, but cut that cord of energy going to them, how much stronger and empowered you feel when you are having those tough discussions. And just, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, well, because when you hold on to resentment forever, it's not just poison, right? It is poison, but it's not just poison. It literally rewrites your nervous system.
Yeah.
It rewrites the way you think and the way you react and the way you do things. So what you said, Michael, you're purposely, consciously rewiring it in a positive way, in a way that serves you, instead of just dragging you around. And, you know, like I like to say here, take the stones of your life and build bridges, build pathways. Don't build walls. Don't build prisons for yourself. Because if you're not consciously in charge of you, then other people will take your stones and build things around you, whether you like it or not. So that's why you have to take that. You have to take that accountability and make that conscious effort to do these things, because it's affecting you, whole being. You know, we talk about arthritis. We talk about, you know, all these different neurological things that happen. Like, you could go and learn forgiveness from one or two guides, or you can go see 15 different people to help you with all the ailments that you're going to get from it.
Yeah.
And none of that's cheap.
Well, I think one of the most dangerous pitfalls of the healing journey, and this is one of the things that is so you got to be cautious on when working with people. We give disclaimers often when we go into heavy topics like shadow work, because awareness without action can be destructive. Because if we become aware of the patterns we have and we don't do anything to start correcting the action, we end up cultivating more barriers to these issues. As we say all the time on here, it's practice, practice, practice. It's not gonna be pretty, it's gonna be messy. You're probably gonna screw up the first couple times. But the important thing is that you're taking action. You're leading by example and not by words.
Yes. Yeah. I think another really great point to bring into forgiveness too is the idea of being offended, right? I mean, we live in a world right now where you are offending people just by being who you are.
Just existing, yeah.
And when you start to get into forgiveness, you recognize it takes so much to offend me now. And I know that when I'm offended, it has nothing to do with the other person, what they've said or what they've done. It's another mirror. You mentioned the mirror before, Justin. It's another mirror being put on me, showing me I've got something else to heal. Right? There is something else. You just activated something in me that is coming up that I need to heal. Because truthfully, nobody can hurt me without my permission, right? Nobody has the power to do that to me unless I give them the power to do it to me. And so this whole idea of everybody and their mother being offended by everything that everybody is doing and saying, that's not them doing something to you. That's you having a wound inside of you that needs healing. And that's where forgiveness comes in. All right, so on the topic of offenses, you know, I have my kids come to me often and they say, you know, oh, so-and-so from school called me a name. And my answer to them always is, you know, so let's say, you know, so-and-so called me stupid. And I say to them, well, are you stupid? And they'll say, no. And I'll say, well, them telling you that you're stupid, did that make you stupid? No. Okay, then. It's fine. You can let it go. It doesn't matter. Right? If we can look at it that simply, just because they said it about me, does it make it true? No. Okay, then let it go. Right? Walk away from it. Move on. Otherwise, we're giving them power.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that makes a total sense, though.
So
it's like it's back to the re-story, right? I mean, it's taking the narrative and not taking it personally, because I think often I mean, again, I say all the time, trauma's never about what happens to us. It's how we internalize it. And it's like, I know I was bullied in school, and a lot of it did get to me when I was in middle school, high school. It wasn't until my adult years that I started actually working through it
Sure.
even before the healing journey, and start being like, you know what, I actually got this. I'm smart. I can do this, and things like that. Because I was special ed, so I was always bullied for being the stupid kid and all this stuff. No one ever wanted to work with me, and man, it's like that haunted me all the way through high school. And then it wasn't until like I got into the military, did medical training, and it's like I passed this. Like, holy crap, I need to give myself more credit. But if we take it in the moment when people are saying things to us and redirect it that way, because I think one of the things that really gets people with trauma and when things are said to us is we give it time to sit and stew. It ends up becoming a part of our identity instead of being able to just process it out real quick.
Yeah, and I think part of that is the exercise of the what if up and the what if down, right? So we sit and stew, we're spiraling down, but we have the choice to spiral up instead, right? And Justin had mentioned a little bit about this earlier when we were talking about ego. The way, we talk about levels, and I honestly don't think that there's a great human language to describe the journey, the process, because we have this 2D idea of levels, up and down. Higher is better, lower is worse, further out is far away, bringing in. It's just, we don't have a concept or a language to really describe what it means to be going through this work and what it means to be leveled. But if sorry, I totally just lost my train of thought.
So when we're spiraling on the what if.
We're spiraling, thank you.
I got you.
What I like to do is talk to my clients about the spiral up. And yes, you are going to have patterns in your life. You are going to continue to come back to kind of the same situation. But when you're doing the work, when you're actually working on forgiveness and you're working on enlightenment and that path, you're going to come to it at a higher level of awareness. And that's what we're looking for, right? So if you find yourself spiraling down, start with the what if ups. Well, what if it went right? Well, what if it went well? Well, what if everything just worked out, right? And if we can start just those simple questions, that's going to bring us to a higher level of awareness. And now we can shift our perspective and we can see it from a different seat. And when we see it from a different seat, that's when we actually take our power back and we can do something about it. That whole idea of responsibility. When I take responsibility for something, I am giving myself the ability to respond. Yep. It's not blame. It's not fault. It's simply, I have the ability to respond now because I've taken responsibility.
Right.
So I think that's just the simple place that we can sit in when we're looking at a concept like forgiveness.
Yeah. I mean, it's not to deviate topics again, but I was having a conversation with Allison last night that was really profound, and I realized I've been doing a lot of catastrophizing. Oh, I think I might lose my job soon. Oh, I think I'm messing up in my relationship. And I had this aha moment of my anxiety. Number one goal is to try to predict the worst case outcome so that I have control over the unknown. Mm-hmm. And so if I flip that narrative, and when I start going down those spiral patterns and switching it from, I'm messing up my job, I'm doing really good at my job. I am valued at my job.
Yes.
Start changing that narrative. Like, love that you brought that up, because that totally just coincides with where I'm at on my journey right now. So, perfect.
Yes. And then just watch, me in language, never, ever, ever call it my anxiety. Don't ever own that, right? It's not yours. You don't have to own it.
So how would someone phrase it different, just for the listeners who haven't gone through your program?
The anxiety, when I feel anxiety, moments that I feel anxiety, anything Beautiful. You can do to minuscule, because your brain believes what your mouth says. It's just one of those rules of the mind. And so when I claim ownership of something, now all of a sudden it's part of my identity. Well, if it's part of my identity, my ego is going to want to hang on to it. And so I'm never going to be able to heal it. And I'm a huge believer that everything, 100% of those diseases out there that exist can be healed. And it starts by letting go of the identity, right? If I identify as a person with anxiety, then I'm never going to be able to let go of that anxiety. But I've got a really great track record of helping my clients actually heal from anxiety and never feel anxiety again in the clinical sense of it, right? We've got to be
Right.
careful because there's worry, you're going to have worry, you're going to have a little bit of anxiousness, but clinical anxiety can absolutely be cured, and it starts by not identifying as somebody with clinical anxiety.
Makes total sense.
Well, that's kind
Thanks
of the
for
perfect
sharing.
segue, right? That's the perfect segue
Yeah.
into how do we start to cultivate the practice of forgiveness? Because it's not just a switch. It's something that's kind of been with most of us, or maybe all of us, this slow progression, building and building and building and building this weight. And so we can't just turn it off with a switch, right? I mean, it's kind of like this.
No.
So it's
Michael
like this
keeps
journey of
saying,
returning back to peace and unfolding step by step. So let's talk about how we start to come back to that good place.
so Michael keeps saying it's a practice, right? And he is 100% correct. It is something that it's like a muscle you have to build. Once upon a time, I was a phys ed teacher, and we had this skill development progression, and there were 4 levels of skill acquisition. Level 1, beginner. It is really clumsy. It is over exaggerating in your motion. So I always use jumping rope as an example, right? If somebody's learning how to jump rope, the very first thing they're going to do is they're going to use their whole shoulders, and they're going to throw that rope over, and then they're going to take big steps over that itty bitty little rope. And that's the same as, any kind of skill acquisition in personal development. So as you're learning to forgive, the very first time, it's going to be painful. It's going to be really big, over exaggerated motions. It's going to be clunky. Make friends with that. Accept that. Know that that's the way that it's going to be, right? And then as you get better, those motions become smoother. It becomes easier. And there's actually what we call where all of a sudden you're doing very, very fine movements to turn that jump rope. And it's the same thing with forgiveness. Those minor things like being cut off on the road doesn't even bother me anymore. I don't have road rage the way that I used to have, because it doesn't even enter my existence to be upset about something like that at this point, right? My husband was the victim of road rage I think it was last year or 2 years ago. He was in a work truck. He was doing what he was supposed to do. Some guy was really mad that he was where he was, left his kids and his wife in the car, got out of his car, came over to my husband, punched him in the face, and cut his lip and gave him a fat lip. My husband had to get stitches. Why?
Oh, wow.
He was doing his job. He was in a company vehicle in a road with cones around him. But this guy, and it had nothing to do with my husband. This guy had whatever else going on in his world, and allowed this one little thing to get so into him that he had to express himself in that way, right? Forgiveness, let it go. That doesn't matter, right? Look at what I say to my kids all the time. Is it going to matter to you in 3 months? Is it going to matter to you in 6 months? If the answer is no, it's not worth getting upset over now, And there are things that are going to matter in 3 and 6 months. Those are the things you put your attention to. Those are the things you focus on. So when we're starting with forgiveness, start with the little things. Start with the easy things, right? Look at something and say, does this really affect my life? Does, at that intersection, is that going to do anything for the rest of my day? Not unless I hold on to it and I don't let go. If I don't let go, I'm going to have a lousy rest of my day, because I'm creating a lousy rest of my day. But start with the little things and let the little things go, right? Ask yourself, how much does this really mean to my life? And when you can start to put things into perspective, it is easier to let them go. When it comes to the bigger things, now there are, I love taking an inventory, and that's what I was talking about earlier. Take an inventory. Who are the people, and when you take my E3 course, in phase 1, towards the end is when we really get to forgiveness. And I have an entire worksheet of taking an inventory. Who are the people that I keep having conversations with over and over in my head? Who are the people that I change who I am when I'm in their presence? Thank you. I just had food delivered to me. Who are the people? My husband cooked dinner tonight.
It smells good. I can smell it from here.
He's a very good cook, especially Italian, when he cooks Italian food. It's delicious. Anyway, so, you're taking an inventory. What are the experiences that I keep reliving and saying, I wish I did differently? What are the thoughts that are on a constant reel in my head? So as you go through this entire list, and I think it's a list of almost 20 questions of taking inventory, and you start to answer those, at the very end it says, you've got forgiveness work to do, right? Because if you can answer even one person for any of those questions, or one situation for any of those questions, you've got forgiveness work to do. So I would say step one is taking inventory. Who is it that you're holding resentment against? And now there's definitely more difficult and less difficult things to forgive. Don't tackle the big bad right away. You don't have to do that one. You don't have to work on that one right away. Take some of the smaller ones, right? Take the time that your sister pissed you off when she stole your something or other, and work on that one and do your steps. And we'll go over what the steps are, but do your steps and learn what forgiveness feels like. Because once, I can say this for a fact, once I learned what forgiveness felt like, I became hungry for it. I wanted more of it. I didn't want to hang on to resentments anymore. I didn't want to hold on to all of this negative energy, because my God, it feels so good to let it go. It feels so good to not be controlled by it anymore. It feels so good to not remember it, and to have it be part of my past and not part of who I am, right? So take inventory, work on the smaller things first. Then, I have people ask me all the time, can you really forgive an abuser? Now, this is a big one, okay? The answer is yes. Yes, you can, and I have. Michael knows my story. I was in a domestic violence relationship many, many years ago, and that was definitely one of the biggest forgiveness works that I did. And that one came through what I call, and I mentioned it earlier, retelling the story, right? And this was such an incredibly powerful moment when I learned how to do this, and I was able to do it. Now, mind you, yes, I went through therapy. I don't want to minimize any of this. I don't want you to think like, oh, I just had this great big traumatic thing happen to me, and now I'm going to forgive and I'm going to be all better, right? There is a process. There is time that has to go into it. But when I learned how to retell my story, it was really incredible. It was actually the weekend that I got my life coaching, my first life coaching certification. That was a year-long process, and then we all got together in LA live to do basically our final exam for the weekend. And part of our final exam was retelling a story. And so I had been working on this for a while, but at this actual event, I got to stand up on stage and I got to say, I was the victim of domestic violence. And now not only am I surviving it, but I am thriving from it. And when I realized that I actually probably would never have gone into life coaching if I hadn't gone through the experience that I went through, that's where I started to find my point of power, right? Who am I? And I say straight up, because of what I went through. Other people, that's a little touchy. That can be hard for them to say. So it can be in spite of, if that makes them feel better. But who am I because of what I went through? Well, now I have a voice. Now I know how to set boundaries. Now I will never let somebody treat me that way again. So thank you to the experience. Thank you to the fact that I was there and I went through it and I grew through it and I survived. I mean, all kinds of blessings there. There were definitely days I wasn't sure if I would survive, but I did, and I'm happy to be on the other side and able to tell this story. I know that I forgave him because I actually ran into him years after this happened, and I came face to face with him, and I didn't cower. I didn't shut down.
Good for you.
I stood and I didn't engage with him. So, and again, forgiveness does not mean that you have to have a relationship with that person. I didn't engage with him. He came to me and he said, and I just said, hi. And then I was able to just turn and walk away, and I felt so good. It was one of the most incredible experiences. And what an amazing universe to give me that opportunity for me to look my perpetrator in the eye, be able to say hi, and walk away. And that is 100% due to forgiveness.
Isn't that, that reminds me of that line that people use, the best revenge is living well?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I would
Yeah.
say that would be a consequence, a side effect, or an effect of forgiveness.
Well,
Right?
just real quick to touch upon what you said, something, it brings me back to when we were talking about the misconceptions. Another one that I forgot, and it's something I deal with my wife all the time, is that you don't need them to forgive. Their part in this is done, right? They
Yes.
did the thing, they did the whatever. Their
Yes.
part in this is done. You don't need them, especially for
Yes.
people who have been hurt or traumatized by people who are no longer living.
Yes.
It gets really tough for them because then they're stuck in this like, well, now I can never fix it. I can never heal.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you don't need them for this part. This is about you and for you.
Yes. Yeah,
They have
you
to
don't
go
ever
through their
have to
own.
tell them that you've forgiven them if it's
Right.
somebody that is still alive. You don't have to
Right.
tell them that you've forgiven them, right? This is about you. And you're right. I do find the two hardest people to forgive are the people who are no longer with us and ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two biggest stumbling blocks that people run into. And that's where you get to really practice. You're not forgiving them for them. You're not doing
Right.
it for their peace of mind. You're doing it for your own. So you don't need them to be there or to be witness to it or to receive it in any way. You also, here's a big misconception with forgiveness, they don't need to apologize.
That's right.
That's a big deal. Well, I can't forgive him. He never apologized. Well, guess what? It's got nothing to do with their apology. Their apology is about them. When I'm apologizing, it's about me. It's about me trying to make myself feel less guilty or whatever I'm experiencing
Right.
in the moment. Right?
Yeah, in a perfect world of rainbow and sunshine, we don't live in a world like that, unfortunately. Or maybe
No.
fortunately, I don't know. I'm grateful for all the bad stuff that's happened to me and the good stuff too.
I think suffering is the most important thing we can go through as people. Suffering is the one thing that tells us it's time to grow.
Yeah, and you and I were talking about the other day, Michael. I think it was the show about connection. It's suffering sucks, but it is necessary because that's usually when most of us hit that point where we finally are aware. Most of us don't get that opportunity to say, hey, you know what? In 10 years, I'm going to really suffer, so I'm going to start work now, right? We don't get that.
Yeah. Well, what's the quote? The lotus only blooms in muddy water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it comes to forgiveness, you brought up forgiveness of self. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, or if they do, it's something they do like to run from. I know for me, I struggled deeply with that before this journey, and luckily this journey's given me tools from self-affirmations to not judging your emotions, because I think that's where a lot of my shame and lack of forgiveness came from myself, is like, you're just being a big baby, you're being dramatic. And I just shove it all down because it's like, no, you're acting out of character. And that out of character was the narrative I was writing, not who I actually was.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if you think about, who Michael was the day he was born, right? That baby did not ever think twice about asking for help. That baby didn't ever think twice about needing, right? Saying, I need something. And we forget that. It's trained out of us. So giving yourself grace and letting yourself know that you're going to make mistakes, right? And that you get to grow from those mistakes. That's where I find my most grace, is when I say, I screwed up. What can I do to make sure that I do better next time? Right? I don't want to go to never do that again, because I'm going to continue to make mistakes. Right? I am making mistakes all day long. I've gotten to the point now, most of the time, where I can laugh at myself for them. And I can just be silly. And that feels good. Because holding yourself hostage for the decisions you've made only holds you down. It keeps you small. It holds you back. You will never grow when you're holding yourself hostage because you've made mistakes.
Is there, besides actual war, name a more bloody battlefield than the one that where we're fighting to heal and fighting to face ourselves and those traumas and things like that. It's a rough place.
Yeah.
It's a rough place. but
Yeah.
it's not, you know, we're all the redemption, and that redemption
Absolutely.
comes through our work and our
Yeah.
practice, and our, our ability to reach out to others for help. That was such a beautiful way you said that. As babies, we don't even think twice. I need this, I need this, I need this. It's when we get older that we don't do a good job of that.
Well, and think about it, at certain points when we're kids growing up, and I don't know a parent who doesn't do this, but you start to scold your child for crying. You start to scold
Right,
your child for asking for help. So you make it wrong. And now all
right,
of a sudden, I'm afraid to ask,
right,
right? Because it's not safe. And
right.
safety is one of those big aspects, one of those rules of the mind,
Yeah,
where I'm going to go where it's safe. So if it's safe to keep my mouth shut, then I'm going to keep my mouth shut. We have to be more conscious of what the outcome is, or what the takeaway is when we're interacting with people.
yeah. There's something that we do on this show, and we've done it naturally. Thankfully, Michael's been very good about this too. Is that we're often taught, especially as we're growing up, that it's we give compassion, we give, and we never learn how to do any of that for ourselves.
Yeah.
And we talk a lot about virtues and character and stuff, but we also always turn that inward, right? We come at it from me first, and that's not saying that, you know, I think you guys understand what I mean, but
Hmm.
if I'm not squared away, I can't square other people away. I can't help them. I can't be at my best, right? So everything we do on all of these topics, including forgiveness, we tend to focus on self first,
Yes.
because and as Michael, he'll tell you, when we started learning together, I focused everything on him. It was like, look, we need to square you away. We need to get you to the point where you are looking inside, and you're taking care of your needs, and you're taking care of your traumas, and taking care of those things. Everything else will come.
Hmm.
After you do that, everything else will fall into place as it should, or as it's supposed to. But and I catch a lot of crap from people in some of the circles that, ironically, they're just out watching and sniping. They're never actually trying to get involved. And I'm sure you know exactly what I mean. When I was talking about spiritual ego before, it's like some of those circles, it's like swimming with sharks.
Yeah.
Here's all these enlightened people, and they are just vicious because, geez. But, it's one of those things we always kind of come at it from, and if they want to call it selfish, that's fine. I don't care. But we come self-centered first, because we have to heal. We have to learn to align and become whole before we can help others heal and do these things. It doesn't mean we have to be perfectly healed. It doesn't mean we have to, have everything, all our stuff together, because I'm not sure by the time I'm 82 if I'll have it all together. I hope to be halfway there, maybe. But, we have an axiom that says, heal yourself by healing others. This is a lifelong thing. So,
Yeah.
yeah, just want to kind of throw that out there, because, forgiveness of the self is the most important thing, I think. Simply because I'm the one carrying weight for something that someone else did, and I got to make sure that, I don't get a bad back from carrying around all that crap that everybody else is piling on me. So, because we do a good enough job of piling crap on ourselves. We really do.
You know what I think too is, forgiving ourselves allows us to become more discerning. And so, something that happens is, when I'm hurt, I don't ever want to be hurt again, so I'm never going to put myself in that situation again, right?
Right.
Well, then you're not going to learn, you're not going to grow, you're not going to experience. And so that's almost a sad side effect of
Yeah.
what happens when I'm hurt, when I get hurt. But I think through the ability to forgive, you grow a strength that allows you to start trusting yourself again. It allows you to become more discerning of others and of situations and experiences, so that I can put myself out there. It's okay for me to stick my neck out and maybe receive a couple lashings, or, the sharks that you were talking about. I can put myself out there and be okay, because I know that they really can't hurt me.
Right.
Right? Because I've built this framework. I don't even it's not protection. It's not a suit of armor, because that's all defense. Right?
Right.
This isn't a defense mechanism. Maybe it's an offense mechanism. I don't know.
I look at it as an immunity to bullcrap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like an immunity. Like you took your shots, and now whatever, just
Yeah.
I might get the sniffles, but I'll be fine.
Right. Right. Vision Lakiani calls it being unfuckwithable. It's
I love that.
such a wonderful word.
It is.
You can't hurt me because I don't give you permission to hurt me. So
Right.
I think that's a muscle that we grow through the process of forgiveness.
So I guess this comes to the real question. How do I know if I've even forgiven? I know that was something that I ask myself all the time.
Yeah.
Am I there yet? Am I there yet?
Yeah.
Am I there yet? And often
Michael,
a lot
were
of
you
us
were you
think we've
were you
moved
planting
on.
seeds and digging them up and looking every once in a while?
Sometimes. Guilty. Just making
a
sure there
great
wasn't a weed I put there.
So one of the ways that you've done the forgiveness work on that situation is, like I had talked about before, you can stand in the presence of that person and not shrink or not change who you are, right? You're all of a sudden able to just be you, and no matter what situation that you're going into. Another one, and this, I will say this is probably the hardest level, I still don't like that word, but level to reach, is when you can be grateful for, right? Or, yeah, I'm going to say grateful for. Other people will say grateful in. It's such a nuance to me, but grateful for what I went through, or maybe even more grateful for who I've become, right? I have found the power to stand up on my own 2 feet. I have found my voice. I have found boundaries. I have found whatever it is that situation brought to you and who you've become because of it. When you can find gratitude for it, that's when you have reached that kind of pinnacle of forgiveness.
Yeah, that
You know, one
gratitude
thing-
without denial, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
One
that's
thing you
powerful.
brought up earlier that I thought was really ties into this so well, and I haven't considered too much, is, are you replaying conversations with someone in your head? Like, that hit me hard. It was like, man, I do got forgiveness work I need to do. There's a
Yeah.
handful of people I got those conversations playing in my head. What it'd be like if I interacted with them and all that, and yep, surefire
Yeah.
sign right there.
And you know what, too? I'm glad you brought that up. And back to Justin's point about that spiritual ego. When people say, I don't have anybody to forgive, I don't hang on to anything. Thank you for laughing, because that is such an ego trap. You know, if ever there was an ego speaking, it is the spiritual person who has no more forgiveness work to do. Because once again, your ego is not something you can get rid of. And anybody who does anything that trespasses against you, offends you, however you want to describe it, you have forgiveness work to do.
Yeah.
So that's a blind spot for a lot of people that I've seen.
It is. And when you do this work, it's important, going back to that self-forgiveness, the more you practice being honest with yourself and being loving with yourself through that process, you learn to start seeing these, like if someone cuts me off in traffic, why did that annoy me? Like,
Yeah.
Who cares that they're like 2 seconds, going to get there 2 seconds before me? Why did that annoy me? Well, maybe there's something I need to start looking at, right? It's how we
Yeah.
identify our triggers. It's how we,
Yeah.
but this is all along the path of healing. And Michael, you said it earlier, and this is something that Heather and I were talking about the other day. She was having a really rough day, and she was, replaying things, and I said, I stopped her for a second. I said, "Look, I want you to think about what you're saying. What happened to you in the past, you're holding on to, and you are comparing that to the present where that's not happening, but you're still giving precedence, and you're still giving, preference over the thing that happened way back then, over 20 something years ago, right? Something that happened to her in a relationship." I said, just think about that for a second. You are forgetting gratitude. You're forgetting, lots of things. You're being pulled back into this. And she said, well, how do I start to get out of this? You have to learn to forgive. Forgiveness is that first step. And I know she'll be listening to this show, and I know she's going to get a lot out of it, because sometimes it's better to hear it from people that you don't know very well, and that's fine, and that's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
I've had many students over the years where they're just like, work with them, and they just don't get it at all. And I break it down, like I try to tell stories. I try to do all these different ways that I can think of to get them to understand it. And not Michael, he's the perfect student, but he knows a few that probably come to mind because I was teaching them at the same time I was teaching him. But anyways, they went off. They said, I finally cut them loose. I said, look, I'm not good for you. I can't help you through these things. I will still support you. I'll still be here. You can always access the literature. You can access me. My time is limited these days, but I will always make like 15 minutes for you if I can, somewhere. I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock in the afternoon. But for your best interest, you should seek another teacher. And they did. And, within like a few months, they're like killing it. The stuff I've been telling them and begging them to learn. But it's one of those things where it's like, you got to know when to cut people loose. You got to know when to say, you know what? I'm not good for you. You're going to learn this somewhere. The stuff I know isn't proprietary. It's universal. You're going to find it somewhere. Whether you find it in a church or in a brothel, I don't care. You're going to find it somewhere. That's how the universe works. Forgiveness is a really big thing in this trauma. I was fortunate enough to had started this work very, very, very much earlier in my life, to where, I had the F you if you don't like me attitude way, way earlier than most people do. And I don't know how that happened, but I'm grateful for it, because it's like, okay, now I still have to learn to forgive. I still have to learn to do these things. I just doing them on a different level now. I'm just working through here instead of this way. But to your point again, and to the point I made earlier, we hit the end of our learning. We hit the end of our path. We hit the end, and then we just start over again. And all that work and all that stuff that you did to get to the end was just really the beginning again.
Yeah.
You're starting over. So
yes, absolutely. It's so funny. The final lesson in phase 3 of E3, the final final lesson, is called the beginning and the end, right? Because you're starting all over again.
Yeah.
But this time you're starting from a greater level of awareness, and that's the beauty of it, right? You don't have to struggle nearly as much because you've got tools now. You've got a way to move through this with grace and with forgiveness. It's so beautiful when you recognize that everything is nature loves a spiral, right? Everything is a spiral. Are you going to spiral up or are you going to spiral down? That's your choice.
I love that. That's good.
Yeah.
And just to touch on your E3 program, I know you've done a lot of revamping since I last was a part of it, but man, E3 was one of the coolest, most enlightening programs I had gone through, to learn all these different dimensions of spirituality, healing, and just metaphysics. And from what I understand, you've sort of revamped it since I took it.
It is. So I've added more stuff to it. As I go through it, I'm like, oh, I really want to talk about this. Oh, I really want them to learn about this. And so now, I think when you and I did it together, was it 3 months?
Yep.
I'm trying to remember. 3 months? So now it's 7, so it's more than doubled. The material, I haven't doubled the amount of material, but what I did was I built in processing time too. And so we do a lesson and we let that lesson soak in for a couple weeks. So we'll meet once a week, but we'll let that lesson kind of simmer and stew. And it's just this beautiful way that the universe works, because when the material is brought to you, the universe then will bring you practice. And so then my students come to me and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we went over that lesson, because I just had this happen and I got to use those tools. And I'm like, of course you did. Of course you did, because the universe is so beautiful in that way. And it wants to bring you opportunities right away so that you can put these tools into action. So that's been really a blessing. And so the first phase now is, I have to think, the first phase is 12 weeks. So just the first phase alone is 3 months. And then each subsequent phase, the next 2 phases are 8 weeks each. So an additional 2 months each.
Wow.
And it's incredible. It's so much fun. And what's so funny too is I put the material down, I put it away, I move on to something else, and I come back to it and I'm like, wow, this is good stuff. I get excited every time I do it. That, you guys will completely understand when I say this. Yes, it came through my hand. Yes, it came out on my computer. I didn't write it. It wasn't me. That was spirit speaking through me 100% of the time. And so I can't even take credit. I'm as much of a student of this as any one of my students. And every time I go through it, I'm going through it again like the first time. Just like Justin's been saying, I start right at the beginning and I do these exercises along with you, because no matter how many times I do them, there's still more to gain. There's still more to learn. I've got students who do it with me again and again because they see the power and the value of coming at it from that higher perspective, that higher level of awareness. You can never do it too many times. And I love too when students call me, haven't heard from them in years, and they'll call me up and say, hey, I just have this one thing. I have this one thing that and I'm like, hey, absolutely. Go to lesson 3 of phase 2 and it's all right there. And they're like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot. Thank you so much. So you can come back at it from any point, from any angle, and it's still relevant and it will still help you. So it is just one of those really, really beautiful gifts from Spirit that I want to get out there to as many people as possible.
Yeah, and one thing I love is that after taking the course, I've had access to the documents ever since. So anytime I want to brush up on a lesson, I can just go in there and pull up the lesson and print it off.
Yes, no, I give you lifetime access. You get all of the updates. Anytime that I add anything in there, it's added into the platform that you started on. So it's all there. I will never take that away. If the platform goes away, I will find another way to keep my students involved in it, because that's not for me to control, right? It drives me crazy when people do that. You came to this material for a reason. It is not up to me to be the gatekeeper of it. I'm going to disseminate it as I come upon new material.
That's beautiful. So when is your next group starting up?
So actually I have an E3 phase 2 starting up in 2 weeks, and then an E3 phase 1, I believe, and I'm still kind of collecting people for it, but I would love for that one to start the first week of November. So you have to do phase 1 in order to do phase 2 in order to do phase 3. You do have to go through it in order, but because it was designed so specifically to be that upward spiral, you have to experience phase 1 before you're able to go into the others. So anybody who's done, if you have done E3 with me at all, you can enter at any phase and you're welcome to join in at any time. If you've never done E3, then I do ask you to start with phase 1 and go with us. But again, the wonderful thing is, no matter where you are on your spiritual journey, you will find really incredible, I'd say, transformation starting with phase 1. I've never met anyone, and I always say I don't work with newbies because I need somebody to come to me with some level of awareness, right? If you don't believe in a higher power, if you don't believe in spirituality, please, with my blessing, go find somebody else. I'm not the right person for you. But when you're ready to dive in and to explore this beautiful metaphysical world of ours, then, come to me with open arms. I'm so happy to receive you. I don't know where I was going with that.
So for those, most of our audience is outside of our local area, the three of us. They can access these teachings. They can take your courses completely remote, right? Okay.
Completely remote. Yes. Everything I do at this point. So Reiki sessions are remote. Hypnosis sessions are remote. E3 is remote. It's this wonderful, beautiful digital world we live in that's brought,
it's awesome.
My last client was actually the one that I just talked to not too long, a couple days ago. She was in Israel. Cool. How amazing that this great, big, huge, vast world has just come down to a place where we can reach out and talk to anybody. So it's incredible.
Can you imagine if like the Buddha or Jesus had access to the internet, what this world would look like? It would be crazy.
I would posit that they do, right? They're still working through us.
They are.
So, we're spreading the word of Jesus, and we're spreading the word of Buddha by the work that we do. So they are accessing the internet through us.
That's true.
Beautifully said. So where can people find you? And we'll have the link below in the show notes.
So my website is CourtneyDeMatteo.com. And then, Facebook is, Courtney DeMatteo Life Alchemist, I think. And then my socials, I go on there, I do my things, but I don't know. I am on Instagram, I am on Facebook. If you look up Courtney DeMatteo, I'm pretty sure you'll find, the things that you're looking for.
Yeah. Again, we'll have the links in the show notes below, so check it out. Do you guys have anything else you want to add on forgiveness before we get into affirmations and the exercise?
I do, and I'll go first. That way, you guys can carry us across the finish line tonight. I just want to reiterate: forgiveness is not weakness. Mm-hmm. In my estimation, it is the highest form of strength.
Yeah.
So it's that quiet act of reclaiming your life from the shadows of anger, betrayal, regret, whatever, other people's harm, other people's crap that you had to deal with, without your permission, without your whatever. So choosing peace doesn't mean what happened was acceptable. It means that you refuse to let the wound define you or write your story for you. That stuff falls to you. And with good people around you, and with a lot of love for yourself, and accepting the truth, and having integrity, and understanding your connection to all things in the universe, you got this. You got this. It's not weakness. You got it. I promise you, you'll be fine once it's all over. It doesn't feel like it right now, but yeah. So that's just what I want to say.
Well said. How about you, Courtney?
I love what Justin just said. You've got this, and it may not feel like it right now. I want to hammer that home because, Mike, that I just in the past few years went through another dark night of the soul, and it was brutal. It was absolutely brutal. And of course I beat myself up because here I am, this, teacher, this person who shares this information. And how is it, here's my ego, how is it that I'm going through this again, right? Well, you know how? Because I'm human, because I'm living a life, I'm here to experience, I'm here to grow. And like you said before, without that struggle, there is no growth. And so, find a space where you can hold space for yourself, hold grace for yourself, really understand that you are supposed to make mistakes, but you are also supposed to rectify those mistakes.
Beautiful. And for me, all I just got to say is practice, practice, practice. All this work, it's nothing that's a flip of a switch, like we said earlier. You gotta push yourself and do what you gotta do. So
right.
Today for our affirmations, I release the weight of resentment and choose peace.
Oh, that's so nice.
Right? It's my favorite out of the bunch. I let go of what I cannot change and open to what I can create. I forgive to heal, not to excuse. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It means reclaiming my power. And I am worthy of peace, love, and freedom.
Yes, you are.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, do I get to do a little forgiveness exercise?
Yes, you do. Yep, you are up to bat.
Okay. All right. So this is so much fun. So we didn't talk a ton about how to forgive, right? The process of forgiving. We talked a little bit, but I wanted to just bring your listeners' attention to a few different forgiveness practices, and we're going to actually do one. So one of the most famous ones is called Ho'oponopono. It's a Hawaiian tradition, and it's simply saying, I love you, I forgive you, please forgive me. Right? And there's a few different people who will say it differently, but that's the basic. So I love you, I forgive you, please forgive me. And then you can also add in thank you. And simply by looking at the person, and basically what you're doing, you're sending them grace, right? You're sending them blessings. So somebody cuts you off in traffic, send them blessings. I love you, I forgive you, please forgive me, thank you. And that's a really wonderful way of just closing it and letting it go. If you have one of those heavy hitters, you're going to have to do that over and over again. And it's almost a meditative practice, right? Do it with your morning affirmations. Do it at night before you go to bed. It's a wonderful practice that is far more powerful than it sounds. So that's Ho'oponopono. Another one is letter writing. So letter writing, what I suggest is first write the nasty, angry, horrific, horrible letter. Pour everything. Forget about Pollyanna Sunshine. Forget about Miss Positivity. Forget about those teachers who have said to you, you've got to stay positive, or sorry, nope, This is where you get to pour it all out. All of the resentment, all of the anger, everything they did to you. Talk like a victim and say everything they did to you in that letter. This is not to send. Note that. This is just to get all of that out, right? Then go through a beautiful ceremony of burning it. Burn it, let it go, allow it to wash away. Write your second letter. This time your second letter comes from your point of power. This is where you get to tell your new story. This is where you get to say, yes, you hurt me, and I survived. I am here. I am thriving. I am living. You did not get to take my power away from me, right? You may have knocked me down for a little while, but I came back up. So that's the second letter. And then I suggest hold on to that one until you're ready, but burn that one too. Because even by hanging on to that letter, you're still hanging on to the energy. So burn that one too and let it go. That's a beautiful, beautiful practice. Next one, and this is the one that I'm actually going to be doing with you, is a cord release. And I want to be really, really clear. There is an energetic difference between cord cutting and cord releasing. Personally, I don't practice cord cutting. I only practice cord releasing. When you cut cords, you're leaving pieces of the cord inside of you. Cords are buried deep inside. We need to release all of it, all of the energy. Okay? So I do a really fantastic and fun, deep, long meditation with this for my clients where they come to me for a Reiki session and a cord release. We're not going to go that deep into it today, but I can at least give you the visualization so that you can do this for yourself. And I suggest doing it every night before you go to bed. It's important to understand that we are connected to people through both golden cords, beautiful, wonderful, happy memories and all of those experiences, and black cords. The black cords are the anger and the resentment and the times where we feel that we've been offended. And so it's the black cords that we want to release. People get worried, oh, if I release this cord from my husband, does that disconnect us? No, because you still have these beautiful golden cords that are connected, that you're connected to. So it's okay to release the black ones. You still have those connections. If you have people that you don't want to be connected to, well, that's fine too. You can release all cords with people so that you can disconnect from them. Right now, we're going to talk about releasing the black cords. So what I want you to do is just settle into where you are. Take a nice deep breath and bring to mind the person. We're going to specifically work on a person right now. Bring to mind the person that you want to forgive or that you want to release this cord from. Okay, so bring them to mind. And now we're going to raise you up. So figure 50,000 feet up into the air, right? That's a really obscure number. You're going up, 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 and you're raising up into your highest self. They too are also raising up to their highest self. Now, when we're at our highest self, really recognize and understand that is not the human being. That is not the human version of you. It is not the human version of them. Their spiritual self knows that they wronged you. They know that that human version did something they shouldn't have done, that hurt you, that ended up with you being hurt. So you can connect to that higher version without any fear or threat to your safety. So connect with that person, see them, make an eye-to-eye connection with them, and then look down. And as you're looking down, you're going to see that there's 1, 2, 5, 10, I don't know, how many? How many black cords do you see? We're going to work on pulling out just one right now. So find the cord that you are ready to release. Find where it is attached to your body. Bring your hands to that spot. Wrap your hands around the cord. Now that cord can be 1 inch thick. It can be 5 inches thick. It's really arbitrary. But put your hands around that cord right now, whatever thickness it is. Imagine that they're doing the same. And now you're going to slowly pull that cord out of your body and watch as the root of that cord is being released from your body. And watch as they do the same. And then once that cord is completely out of your body, root and all, and it is completely out of theirs, root and all, I want you to let go of that cord and watch as it falls, drops down, dissipates. It's no longer in existence. Now bring your hands back to where the root of that cord was seated in your body. Put both hands over that opening, over that wound. And I want you, with all of your healing powers, because we all have them internally, right? The wisdom that created the body can heal the body. And the wisdom that created the body is within us. And so we are returning to that wound. Beautiful, beautiful golden white light energy. Feel as that energy is entering into that wound, fills up that wound, heals from the inside out, filling it up all the way up until you feel there is no longer a wound, there's not even a scar. You have filled that space with beautiful love, light energy, and the scar no longer exists. Let your hands relax. Take in another deep breath. And now acknowledge that person with gratitude and reverence, because they too have released that cord. It no longer exists. If you can, if it's someone that you feel safe and comfortable with, give them a hug. And if not, that's perfectly fine. But now you're going to leave. You're going to come away. Find your body again, returning to your earth life and coming back to consciousness, wiggling your fingers and your toes, opening your eyes when you're ready.
It's always so peaceful after you do that.
I love that one. I love that one. Now it's important to note for everybody who is doing this particular healing, this particular path of forgiveness. I would say 99% of the time when my clients come to me and they do a cord release with me, within the next week or two, that other person tries to reach out to them. And here's the crazy thing. If it's somebody who's passed on, they're gonna try to do it through your dreams, okay? So they will revisit you in some way. That is because they did not agree to this cord release, right? You did it with their higher self. They've done it. It's complete. But that lower entity did not agree to that cord release. And so they are looking to hook back in. Your job is to not engage. Do not answer the phone if they're calling you. If you do answer the phone, do not let them bring the conversation to a toxic place. If they're going toxic, you need to get away, because that is them trying to re-engage that cord, and you don't want to let that happen. Okay, so that's just a warning that comes with that. And it never fails. My clients call me all the time and say, oh my gosh, you're right. That just happened. Oh my gosh, I had a dream about them. Or, oh my gosh, they called me. Or, they just showed up. We were at a gas station and they were there. It's wild, wild things. But it's because energy speaks to energy, and there is a connection still between you. So they are somehow going to show up in your life. Do not engage. Okay, so that's the cord release method. And then the last method that Michael is going to give everybody access to, it's this really, really cool, wonderful, amazing worksheet. It is not mine. I did not come up with it, but it was brought to me by a client, and I actually included it into E3. And it was Colin Tipping. So Colin Tipping is the person who owns this. But he has very, very graciously put it out onto the internet for people to be able to access, and it's called the Radical Forgiveness Worksheet. It is an incredible worksheet. Michael even said he printed out 20 copies. I've done it many, many times. It's an incredible tool to have. So follow the link that Michael's going to give you, print out the worksheet, and do the worksheet as many times as you need to. And you may have to do it 5 or 10 times for one person. That's okay. That's that process. That's the practicing, right? Remember, when we're acquiring a new skill, it's going to be clumsy at first. Allow for the acquisition. Allow for the learning and the skill development to happen. But that was the final one that I wanted to give to everyone. There is an article by Wayne Dyer. My goodness, Michael, I'm going to have to get this one to you afterwards. This article is incredible. The It might be the 15 steps to forgiveness, but he talks a lot about what we talked about today. I don't remember the exact number, but it is.
We'll have it in the show notes, though.
Okay, all right. It's a really powerful, and I can give you the link to it. It's a really, really powerful article. Anyone who's interested in forgiveness, who is interested in dipping their toes in and taking the first step, please read this article. It will just make forgiveness make sense to you. So that's my final word.
Well, and for our journalers out there, I wanted to give you guys the radical acceptance, the radical forgiveness worksheet as your journaling prompt for the day. It is such a powerful page to work through, and I recommend it for anyone, no matter where your level of forgiveness is. Again, like we were talking about earlier, we always have these little debts in the back, and it's just a great way to work through it. And I think if I'm remembering correctly, it's almost like a contract. It's this soul deep thing you fill out, and you'll feel it as you do. So
It is. It's that inventory and reflection, right? It makes it make sense, and that's what I love. Is anything that makes something make sense, I'm on board.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us today, Courtney. This was such a wonderful discussion.
Yeah,
This is
Thanks
one of
for
my
having
favorite
me.
topics. Yeah.
I love
Please
talking with you
check-
guys.
Right? Oh, we can keep going. You'll be on again. Don't you worry. Please check her out in the links below,
We're gonna bring you on
because
for ego or something. We'll find reasons to bring you on. Don't worry.
Oh, anytime. Anytime. Whenever you need I love that you have a male audience. When you want to bring in a female experience, I am happy to be honest with you, the majority of my clients are male. So it's really funny that that's just how it works out.
oh,
Well,
wow.
ironically, all of our special guests are all female too. So maybe that's how we balance things out, right?
That's
Yes,
what it is.
actually, if I could put in a little plug, because I know you just had Brenda on, and anybody who's looking for incredible insight and wisdom, look for any of the podcasts that you guys have had Brenda on. She is a powerhouse. She is an incredible, incredible person. Has been such an influence on my life, and I love her dearly.
Energy vampires. It's in there.
Yeah.
Just a few back, yeah. And look, dive deep. Find Courtney's other appearance and find Brenda's other appearance. Go real deep into it, like 4 or 5 months
Easter egg
ago.
hunt.
You got this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. With love and gratitude, ad lucem.
Ad lucem.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.